good morning everyone. So I will continue our lecture for this morning. Okay, so last Wednesday, I've already covered chapter 1, chapter 2. So today we're going to cover chapter 3. Okay, so the reason why I'm rushing the lecture is bukanlah sebab saya nak rush ke apa, sebab without me doing the lecture as fast as possible, you will have difficulty in starting your design project. Okay, so sebab tu I have to finish the lecture as much as possible, then you can start doing on your design. Okay, so as I told you, the time is a little bit limited and you have a lot things to do for your report 1 as well as your report 2 for this course. Alright, okay, so before I forget, I know that we have 3 groups. I think 2 groups we have 4 members and there's 1 group of 3 members. So yang group 3 members ni, don't worry. Okay, later when consultation time, I will discuss. Okay, maybe certain part you don't have to do, but we will discuss later lah macam mana lah, sebab for 3 person to do a 4 person project actually is quite heavy. Okay, so yang group yang 3 orang tu, don't worry. Later I will discuss. We will see what things that you don't need to do so that your burden is equal to those yang buat for 4 person. Okay, so that's why for those 4 person group member, even if you don't attend this lecture, please tell your friend, please make sure to carry the weight together. Jangan kalau nak harap 3 orang atau nak harap 2 orang to do the entire project, you will definitely suffer. And don't worry juga sebab if you realize the design distribution of tasks is similar to what I did last semester for reaction, meaning every student has its own part and only one part will be shared by everybody. So as long as you do your part, okay, you don't have to worry about your friends punya part. Say let's say kamu student 1, you do your part. And of course the share one is the diagram sebenarnya, sebab diagram tu memang kena ada lah. So everybody share the diagram part. So as long as you do the diagram, you do your own part, you are already fine for design. So macam previous semester kesian sebab previous semester ada group yang 4 members tapi actually 2 members saja yang buat kerja and the 2 member did everything. So you don't need to do that. And saya pun tak tahu sampai dah habis baru beritahu sebenarnya dia buat untuk kawan-kawan dia sendiri. You don't need to do that. Just do your part and the shared part kena buat lah sebab dia adalah diagram. So without a diagram you also cannot do your report. The shared part you have to do, okay, you have to do together. And your own part you just do. For your friend part you don't need to worry, that is actually their responsibility and not yours to do it. Okay, so that's just a reminder so that you know the burden of it. Okay, right, so today we will continue on feasibility study and market survey. So last Wednesday I taught you about process selection. So basically you already learned what you're supposed to consider when you're selecting a process. So for today is what after you have already selected a process, because when you select a process, you will only consider certain important factors, but you will not be able to consider semua factor tau. Then after you have already considered one process, okay, or you have decided on one process, now you will do a further study to determine whether the selected process is feasible as well as fulfill the demand of the market. That's why you will do a little bit of market survey. Tapi market survey ni bukanlah buat survey dengan orang. This survey is basically all what we call as desktop survey. You know, you find from internet, you find for existing literature, so on and so forth. Okay, alright. So we will continue. So we already done last Wednesday, introduction saya dah buat. This is your report, right? For your report 1, which is basically this is what you need to finish in dalam minggu ke-6 dan minggu ke-7. That's why there's a little bit rushing sebab minggu ke-6 you dah kena present semua ni, minggu ke-7 you dah kena submit report. Okay, so now we at part 3, feasibility study. So next week I will cover part 4, diagram. I will cover part 5, I will cover part 6. So I plan to finish everything by next week lecture. So 3 minggu je lecture supaya then you have another 3 weeks to concentrate solely on design. Meaning every week tu waktu lecture, waktu 3 jam tu saya dah kosongkan. By next week saya dah siap semua lecture. Minggu 4, minggu 5, minggu 6, every week kamu akan ada 3 jam free yang sepatutnya you can use to concentrate concentrate on your design so that you don't need to use your extra time. You have your lecture time to actually complete your design. Okay, so next, okay, let me start on literature survey. Okay, so previously, when you're doing process selection, I'm sure you already done literature survey, but this will be a more comprehensive literature survey because you need to find out, okay, more information about your selected process. So last Wednesday kita nak survey untuk cari proses yang kita nak guna. Today one is already decided on the process and we now to find more information about the process. That's why I told you for your design project, choose the process that you have the most information. That is much easier for you to do the design of the plan. So kalau information tak cukup, then it can be quite a big headache lah. Alright. So make sure you include relevant information, and also information can be in terms of book, encyclopedia, you know, like lecture note, journal, article, report, standard. Sometimes patent are also better. You know, sometimes patent they will give you quite detailed information. However, rarely orang patent plan. Okay, or normally people will patent the equipment, the technology, but rarely lah people patent the whole plan. It's impossible for you to obtain a patent on the entire plan, right? Okay, so next information is feasibility study for a chemical process design. They investigate technical and economic feasibility. So bila cakap about feasibility study, it's about technical and also about the economic feasibility. Okay, so only introductory assessment, process route has not yet been finalized. Okay, so you must understand when you choose a process as well, okay, you might have different route to process the chemical that you desire. So maksudnya, let's say you choose one process, not necessary that one process will have the same equipment, we have the same processing step, you know. One process might have different types of processing step. Ataupun arti kata lain, this process may use similar reaction, okay, they may use similar raw material, but the process of how it is produced may be differ. So kadang-kadang kamu tengok, let's say lah kan, you want to produce ammonia, you want to use Haber-Bosch process. But then when you check from the internet, you might find different processing plant, although they are using Haber-Bosch process. Okay, so you must also a little bit make sure kamu kena faham lah, sebab kadang-kadang that is also a challenge. Bila tengok literature berbeza, information tengok macam proses sama, tapi kamu tengok dia punya processing can be different. Okay, so that's also a possibility. Okay, so technical wise, okay, what do you determine when we talk about feasibility study? Okay, consider alternative process as well as equipment. Okay, identify equipment that pose particular or unusual design problem or that are very expensive or hazardous. Okay, sometimes you will check certain process may use not the common technology. So for example, there's one time the group wanted to use electrolysis. Okay, the process nak menghasilkan chemical tu is using electrolysis. Okay, so on paper, electrolysis is very efficient, it's very good, but that is on small scale. Because dia check the literature yang dia dapat tu adalah, I think it's just a lab scale process. So lab scale process tu menggunakan electrolysis. But when they want to design for the plant, because they say, okay, that is something that I want to do. The group is actually quite good. They say that, okay, we want to design this lab scale into a real plant. So we want to design this electrolyzer lah, electrolysis. But then they found out that actually it's quite a tough challenge because electrolysis on a big scale poses several challenges as well. So I think tengah jalan tu finally they decided, okay, dah tak nak guna electrolyzer because quite complex, design dia pun complex, nak memahami dia pun complex, mass balance dia pun complex. I think they stopped because the mass balance was quite complex. Dia quite complex sebab sebenarnya technically doable. Of course you can do the mass balance, but because of insufficient information, so sebab there is a very new technology, so insufficient information about the electrolyzer punya mass balance, they decided halfway to not do electrolyzer. Okay, so not that I say that it's not possible, of course it's possible, but as I told you, make sure ada information cukup. Kalau information cukup, actually is doable. Okay, alright, so should determine whether it's possible to design and build a chemical plant for a manufacturing process. So as I told you, macam contoh group tadi tu, on a lab scale, it looks feasible to produce the chemical through that proposed process, lab scale. But when they want to upscale untuk a plant design, a real chemical plant, based on the production rate, then they realize actually it's not feasible to go upscale. Sebab tu kadang-kadang kita tengok there's always the challenge of upscaling a lab scale punya proses. So that's why kamu perasan banyak journal ataupun banyak paper, banyak research on lab scale punya proses. Tapi rarely benda tu boleh di upscalekan. So there's always a challenge in terms of engineering wise. Okay, engineering wise, that's the main challenge. How are we going to be able to upscale the processes? So that is also a consideration when you're designing a plant. Sebab tu kalau kamu tengok literature, kalau kamu dapatkan daripada jurnal artikel, kamu kena betul-betul check sebab jurnal artikel tu sometimes mungkin dia produce dalam, let's say reactor tu 1 liter reactor. But now when you're designing a chemical plant, it can be as big as 10 liter or 50 liter. So you need to consider nak 1 liter ke 10 liter ataupun 50 liter tu possible ke tak. Because sometimes certain process, okay, reactor. One thing is reactor lah. One more is purification. So kalau nak purification tu pun kena fikir juga. Kalau purification lab scale, okay, senang. But you're talking about real chemical plant, purification tu you have to consider feasible tak nak upscale. And also later you akan buat cost, then you will realize that actually itulah plant kamu kena 10 tahun pun tak break even lagi. Sebab the cost of building the plant is too expensive. Okay, next, external factor that may influence the operation of the plant such as discharge level, stability of raw material should be noted. Okay, so nanti in student 2, I think, or student 1, you will decide on, actually basically everybody work together lah sebab kamu kena decide proses dulu. Kamu decide proses, then you will know the raw material kan, sebab tak tahu proses, tak tahu reaction, tak tahu raw material. Once you know the raw material, the person who in charge of chemical, you need to already know where will your supplier will be and also your customer. As I told you last Wednesday, kamu kena consider customer, kamu juga kena consider supplier. Okay, so next is economic. Okay, so tadi yang technical part, now economic. Okay, so economic, definitely at this design project 1, you will not be able to know whether your plant will be making money or not making money. Is definitely not possible at this moment. However, you can somewhat do a preliminary economic analysis or survey to at least ensure that your plant definitely will not bankrupt. Okay, so that's why I said initial assessment to establish the plant is not definitely a loss maker, rather than deciding whether it is a particularly attractive proposition. Maksudnya, at this stage, kamu just make sure plant tu takkan bankrupt. Okay, tapi berapa banyak profit at this stage design project 1 you takkan tahu. Okay, design project tu yang kamu akan betul-betul tahu. Okay, pada mana masa baru plant saya boleh profit and how much the profit will be in next 5 years, 10 years, so on and so forth. Okay, then only you can finally decide, okay, proses yang saya pilih ni proses yang worth untuk go further. Meaning you will start doing the diagram, you start doing other types of analysis. Okay, so feasibility study untuk technical, this is one technical part, right? Tadi kita just bincang, we discuss general. Now let's discuss in detail, okay, the feasibility study of technical wise. So one is the raw material. So as I told you, the one that in charge of chemicals, you have to already determine where will your supplier will be. So, and the ability, quantity, quality and cost. Kenapa ni kamu kena tahu? And for those working with this chemical, you should also actually work closely with the person that is doing on the plant location. Sebab your availability of your raw material ataupun your supplier also will decide where your plant location will be. Kan, like I told you, katakan if your customer, your supplier is in overseas, meaning you are not able to get your raw material locally. So you may already have to consider to place your plant somewhere near to the main transportation port hub. For example, kalau shipping, you have to be somewhere near the port lah. If let's say you're using air, it must be somewhere near the airport. Tapi rarely lah we will use air unless your chemical tu tak boleh tahan lama, your chemical is expensive chemical, you want to maintain, probably you can consider that. Okay, so that's one thing that you have to consider. The chemical reaction, as I told you kan, normally kalau kamu tengok, when you Google, you'll find different process. Perbezaan utama dia adalah sebab the reaction to produce the chemical that you want. So different reaction, different process, or sometimes can be same reaction, different types of catalyst pun boleh. Okay, or sometimes same catalyst, same reaction, the way they purify pun boleh berbeza. So it's also a factor why you have different process. Okay, so for chemical reaction, of course kita nak tahu yield or conversion and the optimum condition. Okay, next, availability of facilities and equipment. So this one is not so applicable to use, but for your case, kamu start daripada scratch. Okay, this is only applicable kalau existing plant dia nak modify, then you have to consider lah apa equipment yang dah ada. Untuk case kamu, you are starting from scratch, means you can start with anything that you want because you're going to build from zero until finally you get your chemical plant. Okay, then material construction. Okay, material construction ni maksud dia, if you are looking at process of a normal condition, normal operating condition, material construction should be okay. Okay, you can use, you don't need to really consider. However, if you're using high temperature, high pressure processes, then material construction have to be seriously considered. And of course, cost akan meningkat lah. Kamu tahu kan, kalau kamu guna material yang boleh tahan panas, boleh tahan pressure, of course it's more expensive than the normal material. Okay. Next, safety consideration. You can consider juga your safety, of course, as well as your product characteristics. So tadi raw material kan, now is your product. So what are the, as I told you have to determine the purity of your product, your end product punya purity tu kena tahu sebab nanti nak buat the mass balance is depending on the purity. Okay, so you have to know whether your product as well as raw material, do they need storage? If you do need storage, then you have to consider dalam plan kamu dah kena ada storage area. Then can consider juga your product and material, your raw material tu dalam bentuk gas phase ke liquid phase or solid phase, because the storage will be different. Okay, so it's also a factor that you need to consider. Okay, then again, as I told you, if kalau kamu tengok ni, kamu rasa macam banyaknya benda kena consider. Kamu kena ingat, tak semestinya semua is applicable to your plant. Okay, understand that I'm teaching the guideline, but whether all or some or one related to your plant is really depending on your own processes. Okay, so jangan rasa macam banyak sangat ni. Sebenarnya dia tak semua akan bergantung. Sebab tu I teach you guideline, then later during consultation I will then tell you according to your plant. Okay, kalau untuk plant ni I will ask you apa raw material dia, apa process condition dia. Ketika kamu kata process condition dia semua below 100. Okay, then saya dah tak tanyalah pasal material construction, saya tanya pasal lain. So don't worry too much, this is just a guideline, but what is applicable to your plant really depends on your process. Okay, so tadi technical, now is for the economic. Okay, so factor to consider when talking about economy. Okay, first, facilities, equipment to purchase. So when you already choose a process, okay, daripada literature yang kamu pilih tu, as I told you, cari literature kalau boleh yang dah ada process flow diagram. Tu yang paling terbaik. Senang dah kita nak buat sebab kita dah ada process flow diagram sebagai reference, we can work from there. Okay, so why is that important? Because for the process flow diagram, I can already know, roughly estimate what equipment yang saya perlukan. Okay, itu yang paling penting. Okay, mungkin kita akan modify. Modification is of course we have to do. But at least we have an idea tahu, okay, berapa reactor, berapa main equipment yang akan ada. Okay, so that's the important part. Sebab walaupun mungkin katakan the purification uses distillation column, you don't want to use distillation column, you want to use other kind of purification punya equipment, boleh je. Tapi at least kamu tahu satu main equipment tu is for purification, something like that. Okay, so that's why I always advise you try to find from literature process yang ada dah process flow diagram. Okay, next, estimation of production cost and total investment. So nanti we will discuss juga how to estimate the production cost and the total investment. I will teach you slightly later. Jadi kita nak estimate. Okay, so dalam design project 1, the market analysis or the market survey is very brief. We don't go too detail until we go to design project 2. Market and competition. So this one meaning who's your potential customer, your market, and for, your your competitor. Who's going to be your competitor in this production, in this process? So for example, you produce ammonia. Who's going to be your competitor for the production of ammonia in Malaysia, globally? Okay, so you will have to do a little bit of market survey untuk to know who's your competitor for the chemical that you are producing. Next, profit, transport restriction and plant location. Sebab tu nanti ada satu student yang akan buat solely on plant location. Dia kena decide kat mana plant dia kena decide layout of the plant, so on and so forth. Okay, so satu student tu nanti yang akan decide untuk plant location. Okay, so we talk about market. Okay, market means present and future supply and demand, present users, new users, present buying habit, price range for product by product, character, location, and possible customer. Competition, overall production statistic, comparison of various manufacturing process, product specification of competitors. Okay, so these are the definitions of what you need to do when we talk about market, when we talk about competition. In a simpler word is, okay, you want to do a study on who's going to be your potential customer and basically a study on your competitor for the chemical that you are assigned to produce. Right. Next, on the economic analysis and the market survey. Okay, so this includes cost of the raw material and the quantity, current selling price of the product, market for the product and material, location and size for local use and export, sales and production trend, minimum sales for break even. Okay, so dalam economic analysis kamu, basically kamu kena include, of course again I told you, this is example of things that you can include. Tak semestinya semua, okay? But in general, cost of the raw material quantity ni senang je lah. Kamu cari je lah daripada available literature or from the internet. What are the raw material costs? Okay, quantity you have to do a little bit of estimation sebab by right kamu belum buat lagi mass balance. Okay, but I can help you later when doing consultation. I will help to teach you how we may estimate how much quantity of the raw material. Sebab mass balance part 2 kan, minggu 8 onwards baru kamu buat mass balance. So masa mass balance baru kita boleh tahu exactly. Tapi at this moment untuk design project, untuk report 1 ni, we will do a little bit of estimation. So I will teach you during your consultation. Bukan tak nak ajar sekarang sebab again it really depends on the process. So setiap group mungkin cara nak mengira tu adalah berlainan. So I have to see first, then I will teach you accordingly. Current selling price of the product, Google je lah kan. You will know right now product yang kamu hasilkan ni berapa dia punya price. So this one also you can get from the Google, not be a problem for you. Market, okay, what's the market for your product and your raw material? Local and size for local use and export, meaning is what are the demand? Okay, what are the demand currently for your product? Okay, next are sales and production trend. Okay, the increase of the price ke, the trend of the price ke, so on and so forth. Okay, sebab tu as I told you, this is guideline sebab kadang-kadang saya faham tak semua benda, it depends on the chemical juga. Certain chemical, information tu senang dapat pada internet. Certain chemical is not easy to find. Okay, so if try your best to find, but I do understand certain chemicals, the informations are limited. Certain chemicals, the informations are readily available. Okay, so for your report, that's why kena ada consultation. Sebab for consultation, I will really understand apa cabaran, what are the challenges of each group. Sebab nanti di report dia pun takkan sama. Mungkin group ni masalah dia tak dapat sangat, dia tak ada banyak sangat information pasal benda ni because it's a challenge. So that's why actually each group would not produce a same exact report because every group will have its own challenge and I have to understand that during consultation to be fair to you when you produce the report. Okay, so that's why Don't worry too much if you cannot find the information, but you need to find. Kena carilah. Janganlah cakap tak cari dah tak ada. Okay, you have to find first. And most of the time, chemical yang saya assign untuk group ni adalah chemical yang senior kamu pernah buat sebenarnya. So basically, saya dah boleh agak sebenarnya apa masalah untuk setiap group tu. Okay, so that's also a good thing lah, right? Okay, next one, you have to determine the applications of your product. Okay, you have, sebab kalau kamu tak tahu application dia, kamu tak akan tahu siapa customer kamu. Okay, so you need to know the main application of your product. Of course, your product may be used for different application, which is very normal. Maybe ammonia, maybe can be used for fertilizer, can be used for other kinds of product, other kinds of application as well. But you have to identify the main application, or in simpler word, application yang paling banyak customer. Okay, so that of course will be a better one for you, right? Because you got a lot of customer, you can also may increase the price and you got a lot of demand. Okay, so the main users should be 60 or 80% of the production, and you may also consider for new users or application for the product. Okay, ini maksudnya katakan because your product will have different standard or say different purity lah. Okay, so let's say macam I told you, okay, katakan ammonia. Okay, I always give ammonia because that's a very classic, very simple example. Okay, if it's for production of fertilizer, definitely you don't need a high purity of ammonia. Okay, so let's say you target 60-80% of your production to at certain purity that is needed for ammonia for fertilizer application. Then you may consider other applications of ammonia that may need probably a higher grade or higher purity of ammonia. So, kamu produce ammonia pada grade yang berlainan. Okay, grade yang paling utama ni, okay, untuk fertilizer. Okay, 80% ni kita utamakan untuk fertilizer sebab tu main customer kita. Let's say lagi 20% ni kamu ada customer lain yang tapi customer ni memerlukan high purity of your ammonia. So, you may consider juga, okay, untuk supply untuk market ni. Kenapa? Sebab in business, it's important to diversify. That's why the diversify. Kamu dah tak boleh, kamu dalam business, kamu tak boleh target satu jenis customer je. Because you always know that, or ataupun kamu tak boleh target just untuk fertilizer. Because you know, right, the technology is evolving very fast. Maybe the next day, another industry comes in where they can produce ammonia or they can produce ammonia at a very much cheaper rate. Okay, so now your process, you dah kena take over by someone. But if you diversify, you have other kinds of customer whom you can cater, not necessarily only for fertilizer. You will not have this problem. No, you have other types of business that you can go if let's say this application doesn't work. Sebab tu in chemical processes or in business, you must always be able to diversify. Jangan fokus kepada satu customer ataupun satu jenis business sahaja, because competitors are always on your back. Competitors are always chasing you to be better than you and to overtake your business. Okay, next one on the financial implication. Okay, this is cara how to do your basic economic calculation dulu. Okay, this is the basic one. Okay, first of all, you have to know your production capacity, actually production rate lah. Okay, so from production rate to in comparison to the cost of existing plant from the literature based on the proposed plant production capacity. Okay. Salah satu cara untuk kamu nak rough estimate berapa cost your plant will be, this you can compare it with other plant, other existing plant. Okay, tapi kamu kena compare based on production rate kamu. Okay, maksudnya macam mana? Okay, katakan you know you have, katakan competitor kamu, let's say now you know there's one competitor in Johor, okay, which is producing the same chemical like you. Okay, proses dia mungkin berbeza, mungkin tak sangat berbeza, tapi you may use it as a basis. Lebih baik kalau dia menggunakan proses yang sama lah. Tapi kalau tak menggunakan proses sama pun tak apa, sebab at the end of the day, kamu akan juga jual produk pada harga yang sama. Okay, so it doesn't really matter whether the proses sama ke tak sama, tak apa. If you can find from the literature, let's say plant kat Johor ni, berapa dia punya plant punya cost. Okay, katakan kamu tahu, okay, plant ni menghasilkan 100,000 metric ton per year of chemical A. So 100,000 metric ton ni, plant dia, harga dia adalah 1 million, let's say. So 1 million plant hasilkan 100,000 metric ton per year. Then you compare to your plant punya production rate. Let's say you were assigned production rate kamu adalah 500,000 metric ton per year. Okay, production rate dia. So means kamu 5 kali ganda lebih banyak production rate daripada dia. So harga plant tu 5 kali ganda lah. Means kalau tadi harga dia 1,400,000, 500,000, 5 million. So you can estimate that your plant cost should be around 5 million. If it's more than 5 million, 10 million, kamu dah tahu plant kamu tu definitely dah terlalu mahal. Your product will definitely be more expensive. You can definitely cannot compete anymore. Sebab dia punya margin untung tu akan hampir sama. Takkanlah margin untung dia 20%, kamu nak untung hanya 1%, 2%, memang company kamu bankrupt lah kan. So you will probably maintain about the same margin of profit. Maka harga production cost plant kamu punya cost tu should be about the same as the existing plant. Okay, so that's one way, okay, to determine your plant punya cost. However, based on previous literature, based on previous group, student senior kamu, it's quite hard to get this information. Ada yang dapat, ada yang basically got it, you know, but quite impossible sebab it's a secret lah, company secret. Very rarely they will tell you, but depends. Kalau dia adalah proses yang dah lama, it's a very established process, you may be able to find it. Okay, tapi yang penting cari plant cost dengan production rate dia, kamu upscale ataupun ikut kamu punya production rate. Okay, ataupun one more way, which is the easier way, macam ni. First of all, kamu buat what we call as calculating the cost. Okay, so calculating the cost ni, kita ada capex dengan opex. Okay, so this is on the plant itself. Even actually when later when you join as an intern ke, when you join the real company ke, when you talk about cost, you talk about budget kan, dia akan cakap capex, opex. So probably you have heard before, apa tu capex, apa tu opex. Okay, capex is capital cost, opex tu operating cost. So apa beza dia? Capex tu adalah one time cost bila kamu nak bina plant tu. So this is including equipment and facilities. Okay, tu satu kali kita belanja, satu kali belanja nak build plant tu kita panggil capex. And capex ni lah menyebabkan plant akan ambil masa untuk break even, untuk finally untung sebab the first few years duit yang plant tu buat akan digunakan untuk membayar capex yang kita telah invest. Means the company nak invest let's say 10 million, okay, untuk bina plant tu. So dia kena ambil masa let's say the first 5 years to recover back the 10 million yang dia dah invest untuk build the plant. Sebab tu plant break even rarely lah tahun pertama dah break even. Very rarely. You will take many years to break even sebab kamu nak bayar balik, nak recover balik capex kamu tu akan makan masa. Next, OPEX. Okay, before I go that, capex ni macam ni kamu nak estimate. Of course at this moment kamu tak boleh estimate terlalu detail because you just started the process. But you may already estimate on the equipment. So maksudnya ketika kamu dapat dari teacher, right? So your teacher, sebab tu saya kata cari pada PFD. So pada PFD kamu dah boleh agak, okay, 1 reactor, let's say 1 distillation column, 3 pump, 2 compressor, 5 heat exchanger. So you dah buat estimation cost. 1 reactor, this is estimation cost from literature you can find. Okay, one reactor estimation cost maybe about 1 million. Of course, this is rough estimation sebab the real cost depends on the production capacity, depending on how big your reactor, so on and so forth. But you may already do certain kind of estimation. 1 reactor usually about this price. Kamu kena Google lah, kamu kena carilah pump about this price. So this is just a rough estimation first. Next is operating cost. So operating cost ni adalah cost yang berjalan setiap masa untuk operate plant kamu. So this is a continuous cost. Kalau capex one time cost, kalau operating cost is continuous cost. So operating cost ni termasuk labor, nak ambil pekerja untuk kilang kamu, utilities to pay your water, to pay your compressed gas, steam, so on and so forth, and maintenance. So of course yang ni pun kamu tak boleh kira secara detail at this moment because you don't even know how big your plant gonna be, how many worker you need to have. So what you do, kamu guna rule of thumb, your OPEX will be 10% of your capex. So tadi kamu buat estimation cost equipment kan. So let's say cost equipment tu kamu estimate 5 million. So OPEX 10% of 5 million is 500,000. So your total cost will be 500,000 plus 5 million. Your estimation is about 5.5 million for the plant. Okay, so that's how you do rough estimation of the cost of your plant. Okay, next. Itemize all costs as a yearly rate or per ton of chemical produced. Okay, so you have to what cost tu based on rate. Tapi again, this one also depends. Actually, many things betul-betul depend on the process. Okay, tak apa. Yang part rate ni nanti kita akan discuss kemudian. Tapi yang capex dengan opex ni, I hope you understand. And basically, all types of chemical pun, all types of plant pun, you can do this estimation of the cost. Okay, so next, a little bit on capex to explain more. So the capex is cost of the equipment kan. So major item, contohnya reactor, heat exchanger, vessel, piping, insulation can be estimated after the total cost of the major items is known. So certain of your seniors, this part, if you list out the main equipment, you can list out the cost pun dah okay. Tapi dia main, sebab tu kadang saya tak nak limit kamu. Sebab certain of your seniors, they do even better, no? They can even estimate equipment punya price, piping, semua pun dia boleh estimate. So that's why I said again depends. Bukannya sebab certain senior tu rajin ke tak. It depends. Sometimes information tu readily available. Kalau readily available, memang boleh buat. Kalau tak readily available, memang tak boleh. Okay, so that's why I said again, dia tak semestinya setiap group boleh buat. Certain group can, certain group cannot because certain group has more information, certain group doesn't have the enough information. So I will ask you during consultation to really make sure ada ke tak ada, boleh ke tak boleh kita buat benda tu. Okay, so it's also including, capex also include auxiliary services. So including building, communication, electric supply, distribution, road, steam, water. Okay, so this is for capex. For OPEX, okay, as I told you, laboratory costs, labor, repayment charges, insurance. Okay, so OPEX is continuous cost, kan? Okay, so it also include raw material, utilities, shipping. Okay, so dalam OPEX pun walaupun saya kata continuous, tapi continuous pun ada fix dengan variable. Apa maksud dia? Certain cost OPEX ni akan tetap. Maksudnya contohnya macam labor. Okay, so cost kamu labor untuk tahun ni, tahun itu adalah akan tetap sebab takkanlah gaji tak akan berubah, right? Unless year end kamu naikkan gaji tu benda lain. Tapi throughout the year, cost labor tu akan sama sebab gaji tak berubah. Tetapi cost of let's say raw material, cost raw material ni akan sentiasa berubah sebab kamu tengok market kan. Even like now you see harga minyak pun turun naik. Harga minyak now is going up. Okay, so kamu kena adjust harga your OPEX tu. Macam sekarang kalau kamu menggunakan minyak, your raw material cost will increase. Okay, so tapi if you are the one who producing oil, contohnya Petronas, so now Petronas is making money because oil price is increasing. So bayangkan kalau kamu menggunakan minyak, you are using fossil fuels and the cost is increasing, you imagine how much it will burden your OPEX. So for those yang tengah menggunakan industries that using oil, I think the OPEX is severely stressed because harga makin meningkat. Okay, so that's why they call it as variable cost because your raw material cost it really depends on the market, depends on your supplier as well. Okay, sebab tu kadang-kadang what plant do, okay, katakan katakan kamu ni bergantung kepada minyak, let's say you are using fossil fuels as your raw material. So you see the cost is increasing, what do? You downscale your production lah because if you keep maintaining the same production scale, you will rugi sebab harga raw material terlalu mahal. So certain plant what they do, they downscale ataupun dia kadang-kadang dia stop dulu production. Sebab tu kadang-kadang what they do, bila harga bahan mentah murah, dia produce banyak, dia upscale tinggi dulu sebab dia simpan. Kalau dia ada storage yang bagus, dia simpan dulu dia punya produk supaya nanti kalau masa bila harga raw material naik, dia stop dulu production atau dia downscale. So sekarang even though dia downscale tapi dia dah ada existing stock, dia boleh jual juga. Dia still can fulfill demand of the customer. So kamu kena faham chemical plant ni very dynamic. Dia takkan static. Dia dah kena predict. Okay, dia kena betul-betul predict should dia naik upscale the production, downscale, so on and so forth depending on the price of the price of your raw material and the price of your product. Okay, so After all this discussion, you have to present all the finding in the feasibility study in a clear and concise manner, identify assumption, consider scenario, so on and so forth. Okay, so what you need to include, okay, in your report, in your assessment, please check your assessment rubrics tu, saya dah beritahu dah apa yang kamu kena discuss. But as I told you, not necessarily you have to discuss all. Okay, that's why during the consultation, I will tell you, then you will tell me, doctor, I cannot find this information. I cannot find this information. I will verify that, I will tell you, okay, tak payah letak dalam report, so on and so forth. But you have to consult me sebelum you decide whether it's something that you can or no need to include in the report, so on and so forth. Okay, so this why I keep reminding this supaya kamu tak rasa serabut sangat kalau benda tu tak ada. Kalau benda tu tak ada, tak apa pun kalau benda tu tak ada. Okay, so don't be too... Saya tak nak kamu serabut bila buat design. That's the most important thing. Sebab kalau serabut tu memang susah sebenarnya nak buat design. Okay. So at the end, a very successful design, plant design is actually sustainable, environmental friendly and safety first. Sebab tu nanti ada satu student 4, you will discuss solely on environmental dengan safety, which I will teach you next week. So next week saya akan cover flow diagram, plant location, environmental and safety. Okay, so that's for next week punya class. Alright. So that's all for today class. So quite not short lah. Our class pun 1 hour je. I cannot proceed to the next chapter. So I will cover next Wednesday's consultation. I will come out in the calendar your consultation time for each group. And then on Thursday, Friday, I will do lecture. Hopefully, we can finish all 3 chapters, and you can already start fully lah on your design project. Okay, so consultation please attend. As I told you, homework kamu untuk consultation tu, please remember from last Wednesday what you're supposed to do. Alright, so I will see you next week on Wednesday for consultation. Okay, thank you everyone. Goodbye. Have a good day.